Part 2. The Echoes of the Lost Man. The Van Zant drifted through the wounded night like a wounded beast, its steel frame groaning as though it mourned with the crew. No one spoke. Even the engines, usually proud and loud, seemed to rumble in a subdued, grieving cadence. Father Time's triumph pressed upon them all, a silent verdict they could neither appeal nor escape. Johnny Skinnerd paced the length of the command deck, his boots striking the floor with sharp, angry rhythm. "I don't care what the readings say," he growled, voice cracking. "I ain't leaving him. Fiero ain't the kind you throw a wreath over until you see the body." Lady Jane, stern as old iron, folded her arms. "And if we go back, what then? The replication world consumes everything. It consumes him. We'd step into a storm that doesn't end. We'd just become more copies for the slaughter." Miss Herp wiped her cheeks, her voice small but steady. "But he wouldn't leave us." That hung in the air. Truth often does. Johnny stopped pacing. He stared at the forward viewport, where the broken night hung like a torn curtain. Fiero was the anchor, the one the timelines trusted. He's the only one Father Time feared. He clenched his jaw. If there's even a shimmer of him left, we're going after him. A low tremor ran through the ship. Then another. Lady Jane checked the instruments. "That isn't external," she said, brow furrowing. "It's coming from our chronal core." A pulse of blue light rippled through the Van Zant, casting long shadows. Miss Herp gasped. "Einstein, someone's accessing the time lattice." Johnny reached for his weapon. "Father Time's trying to finish us." "No," Lady Jane whispered. "This signature isn't his." The lights flickered. A distortion formed at the center of the deck, wavering like a heat haze. It twisted, folded in on itself, then burst outward into a mist of shimmering particles. A voice rose through the distortion. Raspy, broken, familiar. "If you can hear this, I'm not dead." Johnny staggered back. "Fiero." Lady Jane's eyes widened. "Impossible." The distortion expanded, stabilizing into a fractured holographic projection. It was Mr. Fiero, flickering, half-formed, bruised by infinity. His outline split every few seconds, as though each version of him fought to speak through the same mouth. "I don't have long," the Echo Fiero said, his voice layered with the static of 1,000 selves. "The replication world isn't what Father Time thinks. It's breaking down. Every copy is unstable. Every copy is learning." His eyes glowed with the fever-bright fire of a man who had seen too much and refused to yield. "I found something in the fractures. A way out. But I can't reach it alone." The hologram convulsed, splitting into 3 overlapping silhouettes before snapping back into one. Miss Herp stepped forward, trembling. "Tell us what to do." Fiero's fractured eyes met Johnny's. "Find the hour root. The first moment. The seed where time began. Father Time buried it. Hunted it. Feared it." His image shook violently. "Get to it before he does, or all worlds become replication worlds." The deck shook with a violent shudder as the message destabilized. "And Johnny," Fiero added, voice fading into shimmering static, "don't mourn me yet." With a sound like a glass cathedral collapsing, the projection shattered into blue dust and vanished. Silence. Then Johnny Skinnerd lifted his head, fire in his eyes. "Lady Jane, chart a course. We're going after the hour root." Miss Herp steadied herself. "And after him." Lady Jane hesitated, the weight of reality pressing hard on her shoulders. Then she nodded. "Aye." Setting coordinates. The Van Zant turned, engines rising into a determined roar. Beyond its bow lay an uncharted sector of existence, a place whispered of only in forbidden chronal theory, the first dawn of time. Father Time had won, for a moment. But the crew of the Van Zant were Southerners at heart, and Southerners do not yield their dead so easily. Mr. Fiero had spoken, and they were going to bring him home. The Van Zant plunged through the bleeding folds of the time stream, every panel shaking beneath the strain. Lady Jane tightened her grip on the helm, her knuckles white as bone. "The hour root lies beyond the chronogap," she said. "Nothing has crossed it without being torn apart." Johnny Skinnerd braced himself against the bulkhead. "Then we'll be the first." Before anyone could answer, alarms erupted. "Einstein," Miss Herp shouted. "We're being scanned." A shimmering grid of red light swept across the ship from the void ahead. It wasn't natural light. It wasn't mechanical either. It was temporal. and it burned with the authority of something ancient. Lady Jane's breath caught. Clockwork sentinels. Miss Herp paled. But those were shut down before NASA even existed. They're from the earliest time age. Pre-human. Pre-matter. Johnny drew his chrono rifle. They ain't shut down anymore. A crack opened in the blackness outside. A golden shape emerged, humanoid, tall, elegant, forged of spinning gears and glowing cogs. Its eyes burned with the cold light of eternity. Then another appeared, and another. Within moments, the void swarmed with a battalion of them, each bearing the seal of Father Time carved into its chest. The Watchturners, Lady Jane whispered. His oldest machines. His personal army. One of the sentinels projected a blinding circle of fire across their bow. Its voice thundered like an ancient cathedral collapsing. Vessel identified. Crew identified. Enemies of Father Time. Surrender the hour-seeking trajectory. Johnny smirked. I'll surrender something. He fired. The blast hit the sentinel dead center and passed through it as if striking a dream. Lady Jane's eyes widened. They're ghost-geared. Their bodies exist across multiple seconds at once. You can't hit what isn't fully inside this moment. The sentinel raised an arm. Its gears spun backward. The universe twisted. A beam of inverted light struck the Van Zant. The ship screamed. Her plating warped, aging 50 years in a heartbeat, then reversing, then aging another 100. Patches of hull rusted, grew brittle, then reverted to smooth metal only to corrode again. Miss Herp gripped the console as sparks flew. They're tearing us apart through time. Not on my shift. Johnny slammed a fist onto a secondary panel. Deploy the Fembit squadron. Lady Jane snapped her gaze toward him. You finished those? Johnny grinned. Built them myself. Tough as iron. Programmed to hate Father Time. From the underbelly of the Van Zant, a storm of silver figures burst forth. Tall, sleek, metallic women with glowing red optics and weapons integrated into their limbs. Their voices echoed through the comms. Fembit Unit R-13, engaging. They rocketed into the swarm of sentinels. The void lit up. Battle erupted in a roar of chronal fire, gear-teeth sparks, and metallic screams. Fembits tore into the sentinels with plasma whips and electric blades, cutting through gears and shattering ancient mechanisms. But every sentinel destroyed reformed itself, rewinding its own damage as if reversing a nightmare. They're reassembling. Miss Herp shouted. The Fembits can't kill what rebuilds every second. Lady Jane didn't look away from the controls. They can buy us time. The Van Zant surged forward through the chaos. But the sentinels weren't finished. 3 of them merged into a single titanic construct. Its body was a rotating cathedral of gears, its head crowned with a burning clock face pulsing in furious rhythm. Father Time spoke through it. His voice froze the air. You seek the hour route. You cannot have it. Johnny spat on the deck. Watch us. The colossal sentinel raised its arm. Space itself cracked open. A comet? No, something older and darker than a comet, hurtled from the fracture. Its tail writhed like the tendrils of a living storm. Lady Jane's voice was flat with awe and terror. That's not a comet. That's a chronoserpent. NASA found remains of one in the 1970s, but couldn't identify the species. It lives in the gaps between minutes. The serpent coiled, expanding until it dwarfed the Van Zant. It struck. The ship jerked sideways, the interior lights dying for a moment. Miss Herp flew across the deck before Johnny caught her. We lose shields, we die, she cried. The chronoserpent slammed them again. The Van Zant spiraled. Panels blew open. Steam filled the cabin. The Fembits fell back, half of them crushed under the serpent's temporal weight. Johnny shouted over the chaos. Lady Jane, get us out of here. I can't, she yelled. The serpent's wrapped around our time stream. We can't jump while something is holding us inside the moment. Another impact. The hull split. The chronoserpent's massive eye peered through the tear, a swirling mass of broken hours and devoured seconds. Johnny raised his rifle uselessly. He's trying to swallow the whole ship. Then the speakers crackled. A voice cut through the carnage. Broken, distant, echoing from 1,000 selves overlapping. Hold on. I'm coming. Johnny froze. Fiero. Lady Jane gasped. He's alive. The serpent tightened its grip. The deck buckled. Their limbs grew heavy as time itself slowed. Miss Herp screamed as she felt her body aging 10 years in a heartbeat. The serpent began dragging the Van Zant toward a temporal maw deeper than death. Johnny Skinnerd gritted his teeth. Einstein. Yes. Johnny snarled, fire in his eyes. Tell Fiero to hurry. We're about to die in 3 different centuries at once. The chrono-serpent dragged the Van Zant through collapsing centuries, its coils grinding against the hull with the sickening sound of metal aging and unaging, over and over again. Time dust, those vicious particles of broken seconds filled the air, shimmering like gold snow. Anyone foolish enough to inhale them would have their lungs aged into dust. Miss Herp coughed, her voice strained. The time particles, they're eating the oxygen itself. Johnny slapped on a respirator. No breathing the years, folks. Unless you want to die old and young at the same time. Lady Jane struggled to keep the ship upright as the serpent's grip tightened. The hull creaked, warping between centuries. Then it hit them, a blast of white light, like a star collapsing. The serpent roared. A tear opened in space, jagged and violent, and pouring through that breach came a flood of shimmering figures. Millions of them. Everyone wearing the same coat. Everyone holding the same weapon. Everyone bearing the same face. Mr. Fiero. A million reflections of the same man, scattered from the replication world, torn loose by raw willpower and desperation. They were fragments of identity, shards of destiny, ghosts of possible timelines forced into the present. Johnny staggered back. That's a whole army of Fieros. Miss Herp's eyes widened. How do we know which one's ours? Lady Jane stared, jaw tight. If we choose wrong, the original dies inside the replication world. Forever. The Fieros swarmed the serpent. Some were wrong, eyes hollow, expressions glitching like broken memories. Some flickered in and out of existence. Others screamed in languages that had never existed. They attacked with fury, stabbing, punching, firing chronal blasts that tore open miniature black holes. But the serpent adapted. Its skin vibrated, absorbing the damage. It swallowed dozens of Fieros at once, consuming their timelines and spitting out twisted copies that attacked the others. Johnny raised his gun. Which one is real? Einstein, how in the world do we pick? The ship trembled as one of the Fieros broke through the breach and landed hard on the deck. He rolled, bleeding time itself, leaving streaks of blue light on the metal. Johnny, he gasped. You know me. Johnny stepped forward slowly. Prove it, he growled. The battered Fiero lifted his head, eyes burning with the same defiance he'd shown in every century, every battle. I told you once, he rasped, that a man with no past ain't fit for the future. And you said. Johnny finished the line. Then we'll build you one. Johnny nodded sharply. That's him. Lady Jane hit the switch. The Van Zant opened its chronal array. A vortex of white lightning erupted from the ship, pulling the real Mr. Fiero aboard while blasting a million false Fieros back into the breach. Those shards screamed, twisted, and vanished into the sea of collapsing timelines. Only one remained. The real one. Fiero stood, staggering, gripping a glowing device shaped like a crystalline hourglass with 12 shifting layers. The keystone. Johnny blinked. You got it. Fiero wiped blood from his lips. I didn't escape the replication world, Johnny. I ate it. My copies fed me their seconds, their hours, their remaining lives. I absorbed a million timelines and collapsed them into one. Miss Herp shuddered. Is that even possible? Fiero smirked, fire burning in his eyes. It is when you stop obeying Father Time. The ship shook. A new storm opened ahead, black, shifting, eternal. Father Time's dimension. The domain of Eons. A realm where centuries floated like oceans and every second was alive. Lady Jane stared. If we enter that place, we'll never return. Fiero lifted the keystone. We're not entering to explore. He jammed the device into the console. The ship howled. Reality bent. Alarm screamed. We're entering, he said, steady and grim, to tear Father Time's kingdom apart. The serpent lunged for them. Johnny punched the ignition. The Van Zant surged forward, dragging the monster with it. The ship pierced the boundary of Father Time's dimension, the serpent howling as its own body was stretched across dozens of eras. Inside the dimension of Eons, time became liquid gold. Mountains of hours rose in towers. Rivers of years flowed in silent fury. Whole ages floated like drifting islands. And at the center of it all, Father Time watched. His silhouette rose like a titan carved from centuries, his eyes burning with the fire of every moment ever lived. Fiero stepped forward, keystone blazing in his hand. "Time's up," he said softly. He activated the keystone. The dimension of Eons cracked, and Father Time screamed. The Van Zant slipped through the last rift with a sound like wind passing over an old church bell. Father Time's kingdom collapsed behind them, folding in on itself until it vanished into a single spark, then nothing at all. And just like that, silence. Real, earthly silence. The smell of pine. The whisper of the Blue Ridge. A cold breeze drifting over the ridgelines of southwest Virginia. The year, 2025. Mr. Fiero opened the hatch and stepped onto the soil of the Appalachian Mountains, high above a small town tucked between the slopes. The lights of the valley glowed warm and soft as dusk settled. It was the kind of quiet only the mountains could teach, the kind that lived in the bones of Virginians for generations. Lady Jane joined him, breathing in the cool November air. "It feels normal." He nodded. A place untouched by the gears of eternity. For the first time in a long time, there was no ticking in his ears, no shimmer of fractured timelines behind his eyes. His body felt whole again. Mortal. Finite. Human. Miss Herp stepped out behind them, stretching her arms. "I forgot what evenings feel like. Without alarms. Without fire in the sky." Johnny Skinnard planted a boot on the gravel. He took a long look at the mountains, the blue shadows rolling like ocean waves. "Boys and girls, we made it." They rented a small cabin overlooking the town. A porch swing. A cracked old radio that only played local stations. Lightning bugs drifting through the dark like slow sparks from a dying star. Life, for a season, became simple. Lady Jane learned to cook the mountain way, turning apples and cornmeal into dishes she could hardly pronounce. Miss Herp picked up a sketchbook and filled it with drawings of the winding creeks and old barns. Johnny Skinnard, against all odds, took to whittling, crafting tiny wooden Van Zants and laughing like he hadn't laughed in decades. And Mr. Fiero, he rested. He walked the town roads at sunrise, nodded to the old-timers outside the diner. On Main Street, he talked to hardware store clerks about nothing at all, watched fog move between the hollers like ghosts returning home. He found peace in the simple truth that Appalachia never rushed for anyone. Time, here, obeyed the mountains. Spending time in a place called Jackson Park, just sitting there on a bench, enjoying solace. One night, while sitting on the porch with Lady Jane, he whispered, "No more jumps. No more battles. No more time wars." She leaned against him. "We paid our dues." He exhaled slowly. "Then this is our last chapter, babe." But fate never respects retirement. His phone rang. A number no one had used in months. Johnny Skinnard. Fiero hesitated. Lady Jane looked at him, her eyes asking and warning all at once. He answered. Johnny's voice was low, steady, but carrying the tremble of a man who had seen something he did not understand. "Fiero, are you ready for more?" Fiero's heart sank. "Johnny, what happened?" A long silence. Too long. Then Johnny breathed 3 words that froze the mountains colder than winter. "Guess what happened?" Mr. Fiero looked at Lady Jane. "You can't join me on this one, Mary." Her eyes widened. Somewhere far away, another evil storm had started again. Mr. Fiero got up, walking through the mist. "The end,"